Serbia's Prime Minister resigned following months of protests over a deadly awning collapse in November that killed 15 people. Denmark will boost its military presence in the Arctic by billions, as US President Trump repeatedly demands to take control of Greenland.
Coca-Cola recalls several of its brands in Belgium as they are tested with higher levels of chlorate, but experts say the risk of harm is too low to panic.
Serbian Prime Minister Milos Vučević resigned following weeks of massive anti-corruption protests over a deadly awning collapse that killed 15 people. The canopy collapse became a flashpoint reflecting wider discontentment with the rule of Serbia's President Aleksandar Vučić. Vučević's resignation came after Vučić said an urgent reconstruction of the government was in the works in response to the demands posed by Serbia's striking university students.
Predsjednik Republike I ja smo razgovarali telefonom I sa gradonačelnikom Novog Sada, gospodinom Đurićem. Milan će danas isto podneti ostavku na mjesto gradonačelnika Novog Sada, pokazati deo svoje odgovornosti. I time smo ispunili I one najpolitičkije zahteve dela najekstremnijih.
Scuffles and fistfights broke out in Serbia's parliament between the ruling party and opposition MPs. Tens of thousands of Serbs joined striking university students in a 24-hour blockade of a key traffic intersection in the capital of Belgrade, which ended on Tuesday.
Da je to samo prvi korak I da tek slede jake političke turbulencije, jake političke promjene kod nas u Srbiji. Jer ako predsjednik Aleksandar Vučić misli da će smenom jednog, u suštini nevažnog lika, bez obzira što je na važnoj poziciji, rešiti problem u Srbiji da on lično ostane na vlasti, on se grdno vara. Dakle, ovo mora da ide do totalne političke promjene, jer autokratija I diktatura u Srbiji, u srcu Evrope, mora da se zaustavi.
Mi kao studenti Filozofskog fakulteta, mislim, imamo neku specijalnu reakciju, mi samo želimo da kažemo da to nije u našim zahtevima. Mi ne želimo ostavku, ne želimo promjenu vlade, mi samo želimo ispunjenje zahteva.
The students have been protesting for weeks, demanding accountability for the canopy collapse that critics have blamed on rampant government corruption.
An Italian Navy ship arrived on Tuesday at the Albanian port of Shëngjin with 49 migrants intercepted in international waters. Their asylum applications are to be vetted at special centers there. It is the third such attempt following hurdles earlier raised by Italian courts. Italian judges had refused to approve the detention of two small groups at the Albanian centers, saying their countries of origin weren't safe enough for them to be sent back. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's government has vowed to reactivate the two centers in Albania after they remained dormant following the Italian court's decisions. In Albania, thousands of Afghan refugees waiting for approvals on their US visas are facing deepened uncertainty amid new immigration policies from the Trump administration. Many Afghans fleeing the Taliban regime were sent to Albania as a transit point while the US reviewed their documents before issuing visas. But after Trump's administration announced the suspension of the US refugee admissions program, their future in the US has become less certain. In towns like Shëngjin along the Adriatic coast, hundreds of Afghans remain in temporary shelters.
So now they say you should integrate to Albania. So it's not easy for me to integrate in Albania. I don't know Albanian, and I do not brought here to integrate Albania. And it's very difficult even for Albanian to have a job and employment opportunity in their own country. So how we can live here?
Some people have already been waiting for over a year in Albania to have their US visas approved. They still hope Washington will fulfill its promise to take them in, away from the Taliban's oppressive regime.
Germany's migration debate has once again been thrown into the spotlight after a man and child were killed in a knife attack by a former Afghan asylum seeker who had been told to leave the country. The incident in Aschaffenburg, occurring just weeks before Germany's parliamentary elections, has prompted opposition parties to leverage the attack as a platform to advocate for their stricter migration policies. Leader of the centre-right CDU party, Friedrich Merz, has already vowed to impose immediate border controls if he becomes chancellor, fueling the debate with his statement that he did not care which political party the union's proposal received a majority from, even if it was the far-right AfD. Although Merz has claimed he does not want votes from the AfD, left-wing parties fear Merz's rhetoric implies his party could be open to collaboration with the far right.
Die AfD kann ja ihr Glück kaum fassen. Es ist ja genau der Punkt erreicht, an dem sie die Union immer haben wollte.
Meanwhile, the ruling SPD party is reintroducing draft legislation on migration and security to the Bundestag, something it had previously failed to do due to opposition from the CDU.
Mehr Kompetenzen für unsere Sicherheitsbehörden, wenn es beispielsweise um zusätzliche Befugnisse bei den Ermittlungsinstrumenten geht. Da geht es um die Frage des biometrischen Abgleichs mit öffentlich zugänglichen Internetdaten.
But with just 4 weeks to go and a growing wave of discontent pushing voters to the right, SPD Chancellor Olaf Scholz is rapidly running out of time to win over the electorate.
Denmark has agreed to dedicate almost €2 billion to boosting its military presence in the Arctic region, with parties including the governments of Greenland and the Faroe Islands. The announcement came after US President Donald Trump repeatedly demanded to take control of Greenland, refusing to rule out the use of military force. Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen embarked on a tour of Berlin, Paris and Brussels on Tuesday to discuss further European cooperation in defense.
We need to step up in Europe. We need a stronger and a more resolute Europe standing increasingly in its own right, capable of defending and promoting Europe and the European interests. It is up to Europe to define the future of our continent, and I think we have to take more responsibility for our own security, strengthening our defense industry.
Frederiksen met with Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron, ending her tour with a meeting with NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte in Brussels. She didn't directly mention Trump's threats, but referred to Europe's interest across the Atlantic, as well as Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Coca-Cola has recalled several of its soft drinks in Europe after higher than normal levels of chemical called chlorate were detected at a production plant in Belgium. Affected products include Coca-Cola, Fanta, Sprite, Minute Maid and Fuse Tea, with specific batches pulled from shelves in Belgium, Luxembourg and the Netherlands.
Vind je die code terug op het etiket, als ook op de hals van de fles. En op de blikjes bevinden die codes zich onderaan het blikje. Maar de letters zijn dus ook belangrijk, want de GE staat voor Gent.
The company says a smaller number of products were also shipped to France, Germany and Great Britain, but no recalls have been issued in those countries. Health authorities across Europe have been alerted, with the EU designating the risk as serious. Chlorate, a byproduct of chlorine disinfectants used in water treatment, has been linked to potential health issues, particularly affecting thyroid function in children. Coca-Cola has advised customers not to consume the affected batches and return them for a refund. Experts, however, say the risk of harm is low, as significant quantities would need to be consumed to cause health problems.
Er eigenlijk geen paniekvoetbal moet gespeeld worden of mag gespeeld worden. Waarom? Bijvoorbeeld een volwassene, zoals u en ik, mag dagelijks nog 3 blikjes drinken zonder enig probleem. Dus echt met een zeer, zeer klein risico op een mogelijk symptoom.
The company has apologized to consumers and commercial partners.
Weather warnings have been issued in parts of Spain, Portugal, France, the UK and Ireland as Storm Herminia batters countries across Europe with strong winds, heavy rain and powerful waves. Hurricane-force winds have been recorded across almost all of Spain, with the Galicia region feeling the worst effects. One person has died and more than 1,200 incidents have been reported to the emergency services in the region, while more than 13,000 people have been left without electricity. In France, 8 regions are under orange weather warnings, while the region of Ille-et-Vilaine is now under a red warning. Flooding has forced families in Ille-et-Vilaine to evacuate, and the water level is still rising.
Là, ce qu'on va faire tout de suite, c'est qu'on va encore surélever, quoi. Parce que ils annoncent que ça va monter, donc on va encore remettre des parpaings encore pour sauver les meubles. Hein.
Meanwhile, in the UK, Devon and Cornwall remain under a yellow weather warning, and more than 1,000 properties in the southwest are still without power.
Dozens of demonstrators in Kinshasa attacked several foreign embassies, including those of France, Belgium and Rwanda, demanding that they push back against the advance of M23 rebels in the country's conflict-battered east. Police fired tear gas at the protesters as they marched to the embassies, reportedly looting and setting fires to parts of the buildings. Government security forces were attempting to slow the Rwanda-backed rebels, who advanced into the key city of Goma in a major escalation of the decades-long conflict. The protesters demand that the international community pressure Rwanda over the rebel advance. M23 rebels temporarily took over Goma in 2012, before being forced to pull out under international pressure, and resurfaced in late 2021 with increasing support from Rwanda, according to DR Congo's government and the United Nations experts. Rwanda has denied such support.